Welcome to the Mojo for Musicians podcast from Manny Cabo Media, where we dig deep into today's top strategies to help you take your music career to the next level, along with real, raw, and uplifting conversations with industry professionals that are making moves, making a difference, and making the best versions of themselves to inspire you to do the same. And for all of our Mojo Maniacs out there, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you like what you hear, please be sure to give us a positive review on your favorite listening platform. Support for the Mojo for Musicians podcast comes from Stedman, tools for the studio and beyond, because your voice deserves to be heard. Sennheiser, inspired by music. And Cranium, scientifically designed products for bald, shaved, and buzzed heads. So get your head in the game and own your dome. And now, here's your host, Manny Cabo. All right, Mojo Maniacs, so good to be back as always. And, thanking each and every one of you out there who keep listening, rating, subscribing, and of course, listening to the show. And in all honesty, guys, I really do my best to get top personalities in the industry to offer you guys as much knowledge, to empower you to keep progressing forward, if you will. And today, it's just another one of those moments where I've got an incredible artist, a singer, an educator, and just an overall cool dude that I've been following throughout the years. And, I've learned a shit ton of stuff from. And I may be a little biased, as I just mentioned to him before, because as a singer and a voice personality, the reality of it is we all use our voices daily, right? And we need to understand not just as singers, but as communicators. So we have to understand how to harness and preserve this incredible tool. Especially, I use that word a lot because in this world, in this entertainment industry, it's a very grueling and arduous task to preserve this amazing little thing that we call our voice. So without further delay, let's bring on the show my boy Chris Liepe.
Hello.
There he is. Did I say it right?
You did. You said it right.
Yes. I did my due diligence. I had so many people say, is it Liepe? Is it Liepe? Maybe he's French. I go, nah, dude. Just go to it. He's bound to say his name at some point,
Yeah,
It's good to have you.
One of the reasons I say it at the beginning of my videos all the time is because it is a funny name.
Well, it's not funny, man. It's actually it's different name. But where originally are you from? I got to ask that now.
My grandparents on my dad's side are German, Switzerland, and so the real pronunciation, although I've never pronounced it that way, is Liepe. Liepe. And in English, it means linden tree.
Linden tree.
But we have just said it Liepe, which is no easier to say when you are looking at the spelling. But that's kind of the way it's stuck.
Do it either which way, man. It's such an honor to have you on here on the show. I'm looking at one camera, two cameras here. So even if it doesn't look like I'm looking at you, I'm definitely looking at you.
Sure.
So, I've been watching you for a while, brother. And recently, I love what you've been doing, with the breakup, the isolated vocals with Michael Jackson. And I see you, going over Haley Williams, which I happen to love. I met her in Nashville a couple of times while I was living down there. She's epic vocalist, man. Epic.
Yeah.
And I had to point this out because you look like you're having a blast. You look like you're having so much fun doing it. And that's the key, right? The effectiveness of what we're doing, of what we love to do. And I know you just finished this incredible, I think it was a 3-part interactive vocal training course with a gentleman by the name of Will Rema that you mentioned. So I'm sure that was intense. And I'm talking from firsthand experience because once we delve into a project, we learn from these experiences, shit that works, that doesn't work, right? And I see you going, yeah, I know. And so talk to me about that, man.
Well, I've been collaborating with different vocalists, artists for the past several years, and really on my voice platform, it's been the past couple of years. But I've been doing that for a long, long time. That's how I learn.
Yeah,
and I set into this journey of learning about my voice and learning about music and wanting to help other people do that very thing.
Yeah.
Because I want to learn.
Absolutely.
And I love teaching, but I think, and this is a selfish thing, I actually like learning better than teaching.
You know what? I say that all the time. So great minds think alike. I do. It's exhilarating, right? And it's empowering for me to understand because I can't teach this shit if I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't want to be a charlatan. I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, I think as soon as we say that we have the answers, um, we are done learning, and
Yeah.
we become an ineffective teacher when
Yeah.
we claim that we have all the answers.
I
Like,
agree.
my method is the right way to do it, or not. I've unlocked the something for this, and you do. And so that's one of the reasons I love collaborating with other artists and other vocalists, even if they're not teachers, because bringing them in, and Will was a perfect example of this. I wanted to do that course with him because I can't do what he does. Not because I can do what he does. Like, now, having gone through that journey with him,
Right.
my voice has forever changed, and I've put that on my YouTube channel. You can see, the Sleep Token cover I did a little while ago, where I'm doing these very, very deathcore influenced sounds
It's crazy.
I'd never done, and that's because
I was trolling you, not to cut you off, but I was trolling. I've been trolling it, and you know what? I have to share the same sentiment. Good friend of mine, Dave, who does a lot of my production, he's a guitar player for this band called Face Yourself, and there's a lead female vocalist. I think you've seen them around. And I have to tell you, that's an art form in itself. I had the Scream Queen on the actual show, and it's just a totally different dimension of vocals, man. And you think that you're going all out, you're creating hemorrhoids for yourself, but it's really not. It's just understanding the technique. It's actually not that difficult to do. Granted, it requires a little bit of work, but it goes to show you, once we understand the dynamics and the flexibility and what the range of our vocals can do, it becomes a totally different picture, right?
Yeah, and like the other experiences I've had with my voice, and this is the way I coach people, it's about sensations.
Yeah.
It's about learning how things feel, leaning into how things feel, introspecting, and getting rid of the idea that we need to sound certain ways, especially when we start comparing ourselves to other people. If we have this mindset that, I've got to sound like this other singer, we try to take all sorts of shortcuts to get there, and we might be able to eke out a sound that's close, but it's not sustainable because we're not leaning into. We don't know our body enough to lean into the right sensations, which is going to yield us a sustainable result that may not sound even as close to this other person, but it's going to be more harmonious with the way that our body works.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to sound like Will Ramos. Never. And I don't really have a desire to sound like. That's not. I just like that spending time with him and doing a course with him and Elizabeth too. What their art, their energy, their techniques rub off on me, and then I learn. I get to express more freely and more creatively in a way that I hadn't before because of those influences, and then I get to help teach other people to do the same thing, again, through what I've learned.
I love that.
It's like you bring things into you're given to so that you can give, right? And that's sort of a life maxim, right? Like, if you hoard everything for I won't have enough or whatever, it's like, no, it's just.
But it's sad too, because you hit the nail on the head. So many people are so worried about exterior criticisms that you're right. I remember when I was on The Voice, it's a really humbling experience because, first of all, you have to compete against 70,000 other incredible singers, right? So the way I looked at it was, living in the moment, appreciating the experience. There's something to definitely take into account. But understanding the knowledge, their resonance, how they're doing these techniques, because we all have beautiful and unique voices. And what I took away was, it's just another bullet in my belt. I'm not going to resort to that because I don't want to sound like Chris. I don't want to sound like Victor or Melissa. But I understand what they did, and I can incorporate what I learned in my repertoire at some point, or just like you said or alluded to, teach someone else that might be more suited for that effect. I can't do that, but I got this guy, Chris, who I know would be able to nail this scream or nail this type of vocal resonance or level of, power, if you will. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. We just really need to just harness our own voices, man. We have a voice. I hate it when people say, man, help me develop my voice. You have a voice. Use your voice. Now just use the tools. Go to people like Chris or Melissa, or whatever vocal coach you think might be in alignment with what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah. And, I think that journey started for me long before I started doing vocal coaching on YouTube, I worked for a guitar lesson company called Jam Play, and I was one of their instructors. But then I was also hired to help other guitar players produce courses, and I got to work with some amazing. And that's really where I got the idea for doing what I'm doing now with voice, because I got to produce some courses with guitar players that would never have made a course otherwise. Yeah. You know, Brent Mason from Nashville, Phil Kagi. You know, these guys are fantastic, amazing guitar players, some of the best in the world, but would never make. They're not clinicians in the sense that they would present and come up with a curriculum and stuff like that. So when I started doing my own voice courses, I thought I got to do the same thing, because every one of those experiences with the guitar was so amazing that I want to pursue as many vocalists that have a piece of something that I haven't yet internalized and teach people in that way. And as, in a sense, I become the student, even though I'm the vocal coach in the room. I'm learning, and it's so fun. That's why
it makes perfect sense, because I love watching. That's why I had to refer to you going over and analyzing the layers of Michael Jackson, who really was. He was just so ahead of his time even back then, and just listening to every individual nuance in every single layer. And I see you smile like a little kid in a candy store, but that's what it's all about. And that's how, evidenced by your expressions, that you truly enjoy what you do. And I think that's an integral part, especially if you're going to become an educator. And I appreciate what you said, that you have to love being a student, because the more you love being a student, the better educator you will be, because then you have no egos at that point, you know? And it goes hand in hand, and it goes to show you some of the best teachers that I've had along the way had the same type of philosophy. You know, they loved learning. I learn from my photography students all the time, or I learn from other podcasters. You know, people love hearing me and revere my podcast. And meanwhile, I'm like, yeah, but I learned that from this person who nobody knows. So it's just a matter of being open-minded and anticipating that you're going to learn even the most minuscule technique from the most basic singer or artist, whatever. And you have to love and embrace that attitude. And for some of us, it's really difficult to do.
It is.
I have I wanted you to share, right? Because I've got a couple of direct questions that were given to me by a lot of my listeners, of course, you know. Can you share some practical warm-up exercises that can benefit, you know, both, I don't know, the aspiring artist as well as the veteran, you know, like you and myself? Quickly, like on the fly.
Well, I think the important thing to understand about warming up that I've learned throughout the years is generally we do it backward, and we focus on the wrong things. We warm up generally with a goal to, you know, pound our voice into shape as quickly as possible, and that can lead to overwarming up and underwarming up in certain ways. And then we also, I think a lot of times, tend to think about warming up more like exercising, and it's not. You don't do that when you're exercising normally, right? You don't operate at the same intensity and, you know, push your range and do things, or even, you know, if you're lifting weights or whatever, when you're warming up, you don't warm up with the same level of intensity that you do when you're actually doing your workout. It's a warm up. It's a stretch.
Exactly.
And so keeping that in mind, and then also the purpose of warming up isn't just blood flow. We're not just warming up our muscles and tissue. We are warming up our disposition, our minds. We're recalling muscle memory. We are recalling mind states and emotional states. And, you know, I just worked with another great singer. She'll have a course coming out here soon. Her name is Lauren Babick, and she's got an incredible YouTube channel, has done YouTube covers that have millions and millions of views. Her most famous one is Toxic. Britney Spears' Toxic has 17 million
I got to check her
views
out
on YouTube.
Definitely got to check her out.
And I just had her in, and her last stage, and you can actually get this full warm-ups course for free by following various channels on my YouTube videos. But one of the last things that she does in her warm-up is she gets out of her own head and centers herself. That's actually part of her warm up. And most people wouldn't think like, oh, that's not warming up. That's meditation. Well, no, it's warming up. But in terms of like practical warm up things, I always start by warming up my head voice first.
Interesting. Okay.
It's a head voice down warm up because your head voice is your least. It's the least abrasive. It requires the least amount of air. The coordination for head voice is gentle, and the other thing that does is it opens up our top notes in a way that we're starting with, as opposed to reaching for. Oh, am I warmed up enough to hit that high C? Don't worry about that. Just hit the high C now in head voice or whatever it is, and then work down into the rest of your comfortable range. So that's the first thing I do. And mini sirens are great for that. Reverse sirens are great anyway. And then I have melodies that I use that I just kind of make up on the fly. That they're all descending. And one of my favorites is this. And then I go in and out of different registers and resonances to experiment with where my voice is, coming to terms with how my voice feels. And in that moment, as I'm warming up, I take inventory of other things that may be affecting my voice. What are my stress levels like? What was my night's sleep like? Yeah. How much salsa did I have the night before? Did I have too much alcohol recently? Is it dry? Am I suffering with allergies? All these things. In other words, I'm not striving to do some sort of like, la 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 la. Oh, I felt strained right there. No, no. Just relax.
I got to cut you off, dude, because I love what you're saying, and I'm glad that I'm not the only one. Now I could say, well, Chris said it too, because first of all, I have to agree with getting in the zone. I meditate avidly, right? I've got to get in my head and clear my head too, because people don't realize it, man. It's you can get in your own way so easily. We make ourselves sick. We limit our range. We give ourselves more range. So it works both ways. So that's definitely one I have to agree with you with respect to quieting all the noise in your brain. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny. Even when I was on La Voz and The Voice, it doesn't matter what language you're in. We all have that mentality that, well, no, I got to run in place for about an hour. I'm going to do some push-ups. I'm going to do some lip trills. I'm going to do some, vocal fries. I'm like, guys, you're going bananas right now. By the time you get on stage, a show, you're going to be so psyched out. You're probably going to be, vocally tired. And now, correct me if I'm wrong. It's so important to dabble in multiple types of techniques to see which one best aligns with your voice, right, and how it's developed, right? I mean, that's the way I've always learned. Not everything's going to work for everybody or feel comfortable for that matter. Go ahead.
No. I've done now free warm-ups courses with Mark Martel, the Queen genius, with Will Ramos, with I have warm-up stuff out there. Spencer Sotelo, Lucas Magyar, Johnny Craig from Dance Gavin Dance, I've talked to Chris Daughtry about how he does his warm-ups, and there's one. Everybody has their things that they lean into, right? And that work for them. But
I know I do. I have my own little routine, but
sure. There's a common theme here. There's no wrong, no one way or one best way to warm up, but there is one thing that you want to make sure that you're doing, and that is coming to terms with yourself and getting in the right headspace. That's the most important thing to do.
Yeah,
I agree. Then the other thing is not striving during your warm-ups, but taking the completely opposite posture and releasing into being warmed up. That's the common theme. And the other, and really that results in all these guys that I've just mentioned and myself. I also had an email or an interview with Ian Thornley from the band Big Wreck.
Great band.
And he was talking about this too. He used to warm up for hours hours and hours and hours, or at least an hour, and then a half an hour, and then he kept shrinking it. And he had this big routine, and he would notice that he would burn out before he would even get on stage and start. So now his warm-up is, 10, 15 minutes, maybe, including the mindfulness exercises. It's a lot of head voice, and all these guys say the same thing. Don't overdo it. Warming up's not a big deal. Half of them, if they're perfectly honest, warming up is the last thing on their mind. People put way too much emphasis on warming up and proper technique and blah, blah, blah. And then they get caught in this cycle of, am I doing things right?
I agree.
And then that causes all sorts of tension. And then they're not free enough to experience or experiment or express with their voice. And then they get locked into this, I better make sure I'm doing things right. I better make sure I've got good technique. I better make sure I'm warmed up. I should. And
well, I was one of those, man. Believe me, I get it. I came from that space, and it wasn't fun.
No, and it's a prison. It's a prison because you're a slave and you're imprisoned by what you should or shouldn't do rather than what you want to express based on how you're feeling. That's ultimately what the best vocalists do. They don't think, they feel, they express. And there's a time for thinking but it's a different way of thinking. It's a detached from goodness outcome where you're experimenting, and we would Daughtry and I found some camaraderie in that we both learned how to explore our voices by imitating cartoon characters.
That's great.
And that's actually something that in my primary course, Discover Your Voice, we start out towards the beginning of the course. That's some of the first things that we do. It's like, let's stop singing. Let's not sing songs. Let's not make any sort of goals to be good. Let's let go of our expectations, let go of ourselves, and then discover sensations that we would have never otherwise discovered because we're free from expectations.
Yeah.
And if you can make, I said, whoa, or if you can go, what we're going to do tomorrow night, brain, and really think about what your vocal anatomy is doing. Not from I got to look this up and find out what the nasopharynx, I don't even know definitions, but just like really experience. I have this thing on my channel where I talk about, you want to find how to expand your range and discover what a mixed voice quality and placement is. Then start by imitating a dying cat. And then you can do all sorts of things around that basic sound if you introspect with it. It's not just about making the sound. It's about paying attention to what your body's doing and the possibilities around it without the need to say, I just imitated a dying cat. Now I'm going to try to hit that D5.
Right.
That's just not going to work.
We slowly get into the analytical side. Just have fun with it, man. Experiment. You're right. I used to do the Exorcist voice. What do you mean? And I'm like, wait a second.
Oh, sure.
Okay, that was pretty cool. I mean, obviously you can't do it for more than like an hour because your voice will be completely, ripped off like razor blades. But I get it, and it's so true. I'm glad that you said that. I always believed that we are the biggest victims of our own ambitions. We always get in our way, especially as vocalists. Like, oh my God, I don't feel good tonight. If you wake up every morning, I know, I used to do it. Oh man, my voice, I'm very phlegmy today. I don't know if I'm going to hit that.
Sure.
You already lost. You're putting it out there. Yeah. Now you're competing against yourself. You haven't even done anything.
What can you do, right? Like, kind of a funny story about that. I was very sick, and I was talking with my little kid. He was younger at this point. He's 10 now, but he was maybe 6 or 7 at the time, and I was carrying him around in a swimming pool, and not feeling that well, and he was asking me, "Daddy, what are you going to do on your channel next?" And he's a drummer. He's been a drummer since he was 3. He's an incredible drummer, really legit. In fact, if you go on my YouTube channel and you listen to some of the music that I sing to, that's not like the track of Linkin Park or whatever. He's playing drums on some.
He's rocking out on them. That's awesome. Keep it in the family. I love it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so he was asking, what are you going to do next? And I said, I don't know. I've got a few things on my list. He says, you should cover that Beatles song that we were listening to.
Ooh,
and
I'm a big Beatles fan, so I can't wait to hear it. What?
Yeah, well, I did it a long time ago, but it was Come Together, an a cappella version of Come Together. And he said, I said, well, you know what? That's actually the perfect time to do that because I can't hit that D2 well and really resonantly when I'm healthy, but I can do it now. I don't have a top register at all right now because I'm sick. But so I went home after we got out of the pool, just turned all the stuff on. I recorded all the bass lines of the acapella
That's
stuff,
great.
and to this day, I still can't get that quality out of my voice. But I did all those, and then I waited till I was recovered, and then I recorded all the other stuff. And so if you have that sort of mentality about your voice, I think, come to terms with where your voice is for the day, for the moment. Yeah. And I think that's another thing that, with the one takes I've been doing on my channel lately, it's impossible to do a good one take if you're constantly worried about doing it well.
Yeah.
You really need to be thinking about experiencing your voice in the moment, and then you make choices based on sensations rather than desired achievements.
I like that.
Right.
It takes a lot of pressure off you if you think of it that way. Sure.
Yeah, it does. It's like, I did a one take of Since I've Been Loving You by Led Zeppelin a while ago, and that's a difficult song to sing.
Yeah, no shit.
Especially in one take, and especially if you're going to hit all those notes. And I remember when I was practicing for it, I would never sing the song all the way through on the day that I was going to record my one take. I had my mic set up and I had the cameras rolling, and I would, mumble a part of this, and I'd shriek this thing, and then I'd check some email, and I'd start it over and I'd listen again, and then I'd have a phone conversation, and then I'd sing another half of a verse or whatever. And I'm just doing this for a couple hours. And then right before I went to go track, I went upstairs. I had some lunch, which, they always tell you, oh, don't eat this one before you're supposed to. Screw all that. I had like Greek yogurt, cheese, fiber tortillas, some chicken, and some vegetables.
Those are like all
juice,
supposedly taboo things to eat before a performance.
Right. But I did it, and I sort of did it on purpose because I was like, you know what? Yeah. I feel great when I eat this stuff, so I'm just going to eat it. Yeah. And then I came down, and I hit the red button, and I said, I'm not stopping. Whatever happens is going to happen, and I'm going to put it out. And that's the attitude I take. It's not, I hope, I wish, I need to. It's, I'm just going to have fun doing this. I'm going to let the practicing that I've done and the experiences I've had, the introspective time that I've had with my voice work for me in that moment. And then I'm going to throw everything else out and let my voice do what it does. Does that mean I'm going to be making every decision the way I want to be making it? No. It means I'm listening to my body, and I'm experiencing, I'm holding my own voice hand like it's a little kid and going, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? It's and then leaning into what wants to happen from a sensational standpoint.
I love that. And, I want to add to that as well. For me, a big component is another very important variable for me that have lent itself to having some really good, solid performances was the preparation. The more preparation you do prior to a performance, the less stress you have, the less pressure you put on yourself. Because now, if you put in the reps, right, prior to the performance, then obviously that level of worry is completely gone now. Now I could just focus on having fun, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think there's a certain qualifier there too. Yeah. How you prepare allows you to sort of forget about all of that stuff and be in the moment and live in freedom while you're doing whatever.
100%. I guess we agree on that without a doubt.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really wanted to ask you is, as an artist, musician, vocal coach, trainer, how do you balance the demands of, performing live, maintaining vocal health, longevity, family? Because that seems to be one of the biggest revolving issues that a lot of entertainers have, is having that quote unquote balance.
Yeah. Well, I don't perform live much anymore at all. Okay. I went through a season, and I never got to a position where I was touring or anything. The biggest thing I did was, sort of an after hours local gig circuit years ago. All of my vocalizations are, serve my YouTube channel. I do collaborations and vocals for hire. I'm a voice actor and a voiceover artist. And so everything from a professional standpoint is all done mostly in this studio.
In-house, sure. And that's keeping you busy as hell anyway. Yeah, so
well,
you don't
sure.
even have to sing, but you are singing. That's the beauty of it. I just
Sure.
figured, because that's a big challenge for a lot of us.
Well, and I do sing. Of course, I sing a lot for YouTube and all those things, and then of course I'm coaching and I'm talking a lot. And balance is a careful consideration of your resources and your time, and trying to navigate a particular balance for one person may be very different for another person. Sure. Although I can say this, range-filled dynamic speaking, in terms of, if we're talking about demand placed on my voice, I talk about this a lot in my courses in different ways. We train our voices to handle certain types of impact, and if we can be range-filled and variety-oriented with our speaking voice, it's going to give us more vocal budget for doing other things with it, for singing, because we're already, it's like, if I say, do the same exercise with your bicep over and over again, just lift this weight over and over again, that bicep's going to get tired really, really quickly.
Sure.
But if you're doing a full body workout and you're cycling around, you're using different muscles, you can work out for much longer because you're using more muscles, more postures, more. It's the same with your voice. If you can be range-filled when you're speaking, whether that's you're speaking to your kids or your dog or whatever, and you carry that into your singing, you're not just working on one technique all the time, or your songs are not all in the same range, and they're not all using the same techniques. The more variety you can introduce into how you use your voice, the more longevity and stamina you will get out of your voice.
Very eloquently put. I love that, man. Thanks for sharing that, because that's huge for a lot of us, including myself sometimes.
Yeah.
And let's wrap this up. Signature question. What's your mojo, brother? Why do you keep waking up every day, educating, singing, YouTube channels, voice animations? Go.
I keep doing what I do because I don't really operate any differently otherwise. What I do and what I've fallen into in terms of being a vocal coach is it's just an extension of how I operate and who I am. And like, I love to teach. I love to teach my kids stuff. I love to, when my dog discovers a new thing, I love to have discussions about perspectives and ideas and beliefs, and I like learning what other people think. I like, and so
you're just an inquisitive dude, bro.
Yeah,
I love that.
and that's what it is.
That's what keeps us going. Keeps me going.
This is just an extension. What I do is just an extension of what I already enjoy, focused very much on voice. And I wouldn't say that I'm inquisitive in all areas. I mean, there's some things that I've just sort of shut myself down to. Like, I'm never going to be a very handy person, right? Like, I'm not inquisitive. I actually really enjoy learning how, like, the internal combustion engine works and stuff like that. But I'm not going to go out and build an internal combustion engine or teach people about that.
I get it.
But there's still that curiosity there. And I think my kids have continued to awaken me to, as I see their curiosities, and I love feeding that curiosity. So that's one thing that keeps me going. Awesome. The other thing that keeps me going is not many people get a chance to stumble into something that they really enjoy and have it provide for their family. Yeah. I was there for years and years and years, where you've got this thing that you need to do to pay the bills, and then you've got all these things that you're interested in, and they're not the same.
Right.
And once I was able to support my family with the things that I liked to do, teach, sing, make music, be creative with my voice, like that's what gets me up.
Couldn't agree with you more.
the fact that I get to do that, and that's, I guess, if I were to impart any sort of inspiration for anybody, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have a career that's exactly in line with all of your interests. Because I didn't think I'd be doing this. Like, honestly, when I was 16, 17, I thought I was going to be a touring guitar player, singer, sideman singer guy, maybe rock star eventually. I don't know. But if I were to impart any sort of inspiration, it's like, say yes to as many things as possible, and don't shut down ideas that you may have because they're not fiscally responsible, or I quit all my stable work and started doing what I'm doing because I wanted to do it, and whenever I'm having a bad attitude about having to produce another YouTube video that I'm not sure will work or won't work with the algorithm, I remind myself that, well, for now anyway, this is what I get to do, and I get to provide for my family by making stupid noises on YouTube and teaching people how to sing, and admiring artists and learning from them. Like, being gratefulness and thankfulness is a huge part of what gets me up.
Dude, I'm right there with you, man. But listen, we're about to run down here. Before you go, how do people find you? And of course, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, experiences, your philosophies, brother. How do we find you?
Well, you can find me on my YouTube channel. That's the primary place, youtube.com/Chris Liepe. And then I've got lots of courses if you want to go deeper that include all of my collaborations that I've mentioned earlier in the podcast. You can find those at mymusicalvoice.
And hey, by the way, I signed up for your course. I'm getting my first video today.
Oh, cool.
Like you, I love learning, man. So I can't wait. I'm waiting for the next two. So tomorrow I'll get the next one, man. But you're awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your time. And I wish you nothing but much continued success and abundance in all of your musical pursuits, brother.
Thank you for having me on, Manny. Talk soon.
Absolutely, brother. Have an amazing day. Be well.
This has been a Mojo for Musicians podcast. If you're a musician, industry professional, or a voice with a powerful message and wanting to share your mojo and stories of success with our listeners, or simply share some feedback on today's episode, we'd love to hear from you. So send us an email at info@mannycabo.com. As always, much love and peace. Live to inspire. Thanks for listening.